What's up, guys? Welcome to the podcast. Here with Shane right now, flying all the way out from Arizona to St. Louis. He actually used to live in St. Louis, which he's getting ready to talk about. Super pumped to have him as a guest. Shane, welcome, man. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you having me. I own a virtual real estate wholesaling and investment company. I started this company about 3 years ago. We do it out of Arizona, but we only buy property here in St. Louis. We just
So you said virtual, right? Like I
mhm,
don't hear the word virtual and real estate quite often. So what would you say, like, for the people that, and it sounds pretty sexy, I'm not gonna lie.
mhm.
A lot of people are doing it, I guess, in their own town and stuff like that. It sounds like you're doing it in other markets. Like, why virtual?
Yeah, no, so that's a really good question. So like I said, I live in Phoenix, and for my business, Phoenix is probably one of the most competitive and expensive like markets to just be in real estate investing, period. So when I got started, I tried to kind of build a real estate investing company in Phoenix, and it was just super competitive. The price points is it's just really expensive out there, so it's really hard to kind of get into the industry there. So I remember I'd kind of already had some real estate connections in St. Louis because before I went full time, I had already been investing kind of part time in the St. Louis market, just not doing the wholesale side of things, which is our primary business. So I decided to just kind of take some time and try to focus on, doing my business in St. Louis and see what would come of it. And there's just a lot less barriers to entry. Less competition. It was helpful that I already kind of knew the market and stuff like that and had connections. So it just made a lot more sense.
So could you break down a deal of like what a virtual deal looks like, right? So like how are you finding a deal and you're at your house in Arizona and then if it's a wholesale, right, are you just like calling that person, or if it's a flip, you got all your contractors and you never even have to go to the property one time.
Yeah, yeah, man, it's crazy. So there's definitely a lot of connections you need to make. You need to have like boots on the ground to be able to do it efficiently. So, like I said, since I had already kind of built some connections in St. Louis, I had people who were willing to help me out, go look at, evaluate properties for me. I think a lot of that came from, again, just building relationships, but also bringing value to those relationships. I think a lot of people who would kind of do those favors for me when I just got started, it was because they saw that, I might not have been bringing value to them right that at that time, but they saw that like my intentions were good. They knew that I was going to work hard to, return the favor. But yeah, no, I mean, definitely requires like boots on the ground, people who can go, visit the house and kind of give you feedback and stuff on it.
How hard is that to manage, considering you're in a different state?
It's Yeah, it's pretty hard to manage, especially if you're unorganized like I am. But it really doesn't need to be that hard. I think honestly, if you have the right people, I think that I would just kind of wing it a lot of times, which made it a little bit more difficult to manage. But if you have systems and processes in place, you have a team that's has very specific duties. It doesn't really need to be that difficult.
Okay. And then you're in the wholesaling game, the flipping game,
hmm
and do you have any rentals?
Yeah, so we've got a few. I think we have 8 rentals right now, 8 long-term rentals, and then we have one Airbnb in the
Okay.
city. Yeah.
And where's that at? Did you say Tennessee?
No, in the city.
Oh, in
Sorry.
the city. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that arbitrage or
No, we bought it as a second home. So because our plan is we still want to come back to St. Louis quarterly to check on rentals, check on projects for local connections, things like that. So it's a second home. We just rent it out Airbnb
okay.
when we're not here.
So I'm super curious, right? Like
hmm
there's obviously the single family rentals that a lot of people complain about, and there's also the people that are like, that's the best thing ever.
hmm
Maybe you're making $300 a month cash flow on the property, or profit, on that property, and you're dealing with a certain type of tenant. And then there's other people that have Airbnbs where they might make a couple $1,000s a month net profit on these properties. Why, like what would you say about Airbnb? I mean, Airbnb is blown up. It's all over the internet. There's people arbitraging units, that sort of thing. Like, are you trying to be diversified, or why don't you go all in on Airbnb if it's making so much money?
Yeah, well, the first reason is mine isn't making that much money.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think getting into the Airbnb space is something that I've wanted to do and kind of considered. I know one of the things that a lot of my mentors have told me is to focus on what you're good at. And I mean, even though Airbnb is still real estate investing, it's still like a completely separate business. You need different systems, processes, like your kind of the numbers you run are different. So it's just
It's more of a business.
yeah. And so, again, that requires a lot more work and things. And I just don't necessarily have the time. I mean, I don't even manage the one that we have right now. We have
Right.
a management company in place. But yeah, I mean, I think, and then lately, I have a buddy who does arbitrage full time. And he's been doing well with his, but he's kind of been hit a little bit too. So,
Do you think that
uh,
market's saturated at all? Where you
um,
go to St. Louis and there's 100 Airbnbs to pick from?
yeah, I think certain markets are definitely saturated. Phoenix is really saturated because I actually thought about getting like buying Airbnbs there. But yeah, I think it's definitely really saturated, especially as more people learn about, how profitable it is. Obviously, more people want to get involved. Because Airbnb kind of has like the system in place, it's not really like a super difficult. I mean, it's not easy, but it's not super difficult to get in either.
So I
So
watched my buddy, he's 20 years old, lived in St. Louis, lives in Vegas now. You might know him. I'm not going to say his name on here, but he was doing Airbnb arbitrage and had like 10 units or something
mhm,
like that, right? And nobody was really talking about the arbitrage at the time, or he was one of the first, we'll say. And then he got into the coaching business, right? And I think he's coached like an unbelievable amount of people, like thousands and thousands of people,
oh wow.
right? To where it's just like, it's not, there's no way it can work for everyone, and it's
Mhm,
such a sexy business, unlike junk removal, right? To where everyone wants to get into that, and it's just like, there's the people who are obviously coaching and that sort of thing, saying it's the best thing ever,
mhm.
but then there's also the other people who are more in the long-term rentals. So like you have a couple long-term rentals. How much money are you making on these deals, and why should somebody, I guess, get a rental property if it's only going to make $300 a month, or are you making more than that?
Yeah, no, 300 is, I mean, that's a lot for me for long-term rentals because I think that I like to treat it also as a business. So I think a lot of people kind of measure their cash flow as rent minus just the mortgage. But when we look at our cash flow, we do rent minus mortgage minus future vacancies, minus property management, minus future maintenance, CapEx expenses. So I mean, I think we average like 150 to 200 per door. Long-term rentals are definitely like a long-term play. You're obviously not going to make a whole lot of money on them. Like right now, it takes a lot of time to build that wealth. But in if you build up a really big portfolio, it doesn't really take long to do that. 5, 10 years, you can build a portfolio of 100 plus houses, and then, 100 times three, or what I say,
Or
200 a month. That's
like
20 grand a month.
yeah, 10, yeah.
And I
If
mean, I
you're
know people who have 300 rental properties, especially if you get them in a place like St. Louis or the Midwest where, the cost of entry isn't that high. I remember talking to a real estate agent who was telling me about one of her clients who owned 300 rental properties. He cash flowed $80,000 a month. And I mean, that's amazing income. It took time for him to build
right.
it, but he would buy like $35,000 houses, fix them up and get a tenant in there paying $900 a month.
Are you in Section 8 at all? Like, I'm super interested in that business model because of, I don't know if you know Tom Cruise or you follow,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, and he's got like,
Yeah,
I
he's
think I saw a
crazy.
post today, he makes like 700K a month
Yeah.
profit or something like that, all
hmm
Section 8. Are you very familiar with the Section 8 industry and, or I guess that part of real estate?
I'm not familiar with it myself. I considered renting mine properties out Section 8 because especially like with COVID the last like a couple years ago, I think a lot of people wanted to transition into Section 8 because it's guaranteed income. And one of my mentors who actually helped me get started, she like specializes in Section 8 rentals. And I think for me, she debunked like a lot of the myths like that, you have bad tenants, they're going to
Hmm.
mess up the property. What I learned from her is that if you put out a good product, like a house that's, nice, fixed up, you're gonna have, the best quality of tenants to kind of choose from. And I mean, she built a portfolio of 30 some Section 8 rentals within like a year and a half. Didn't have any, additional expenses that, a normal landlord would have. So,
So I'm like such an income. I'm like so focused on income itself, right? How much
mhm.
money's coming through the door every single month. Where, I feel like it's the image portrayed on social media where it's like somebody who makes $60,000 a year needs to go buy their first rental property, right? That's going to make $150 a month. Like, do you think people who, are newer to the game will say should be, if they're, I know you can leverage other people's money and stuff like that. Do you
Mhm.
think that people, I guess, at a lower level, right, who don't make as much money, they don't have enough money to play with, do you think they should focus on income itself or go get like that rental property that's going to make them, a little money?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it definitely depends on the person, like what their goals are and skill sets are for sure. I mean, before I got fired from my job and went into real estate full time, I mean, I was making $58,000 a year, and my goal was to buy a bunch of rental properties using the Burr method, which doesn't really require you putting up any of your own cash if you do it right. So, it really, I think, yeah, it depends on like what your goals are, how much free time you have. Because, you buy rentals for passive income for the long haul, but you can do other things like wholesaling, flipping for immediate income, but which is great, but you're always going to have to work for that income. If you start buying rentals and get really good at doing it, build a portfolio of it, 5, 10 years from now, you might not have to keep working. So, it's tough to answer that question because, everybody's situation is different. Everybody's, amount of free time is different. Their skill set's different. I think it just depends on, if you have enough time to, continue to build like active income, and you can use that to buy more rental properties quickly, then yeah, I would definitely say, do that. But, some people might have more limited time and just don't want to, do all the some people might not want to wholesale, might not want to, deal with the, fix and flip.
Right.
Um,
For sure, man. So you said that you were making 58,000 a year.
mhm.
What were you doing at that time? And I guess that was the start of your journey of getting into real estate. So I want to dive deep in like, what made you make that pivot from this job to getting into real estate, and what that looked like.
Yeah, so I was working as a sales manager for a commercial lighting company. And I was already before I got into wholesaling, which is my business now. I had bought a property to flip that I was doing part time to build active income so I could buy rentals. So I had already had my foot in the door with real estate. I bought that property to flip. It was a nightmare. As soon as I closed on it, I was losing money day one. It was not fun at all. In the middle of that, I got fired from my full-time job um, when I also had a pregnant wife, and we had just bought our first house like a few months before. So that's what transitioned me into. At that point, I knew what wholesaling was. I'd been doing sales for a while, which wholesaling is sales and marketing. I knew that you could make really good money. I'd seen all the videos, people making $10,000, $15,000 a month doing wholesaling. Um, I had, talked to my wife. I was like, hey, you know, I think I should give this a shot. I'm gonna make sure that we're like, okay, like give me 2, 3 months, try this out, see if it works. If not, then, I'll apply like for jobs and, but I felt like I really needed to like give it a shot and see, cause 10, 15,000, I'm used to making $5,000 a month. I'm like, this could be life changing. So I just decided to, go all in. My hand was forced, I got fired. It's not like I had honestly really made a decision. Like it was kind of made for me.
Was it work ethic that got you fired, or can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's funny now because they fired me because they said I wasn't a closer.
Okay.
Yeah, which is interesting because we close millions of real
Yeah,
estate
look
deals
at you
now.
now.
Yeah, so it's funny looking back on it, but yeah, I mean it was during COVID, so nobody was closing. I just thought it was weird that they kind of put it on me. But I mean it's big blessing in disguise.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean,
So
I think.
let's dive into that first deal, right? So
Hmm.
you said that, it was your first deal. You probably don't know really what you're talking about, what you're doing. So you
Hmm.
put a house under contract.
Yeah.
And like everyone in real estate that I know of, right? They always go by that model of the 75% of the ARV minus repairs or whatever.
Hmm.
Is that kind of what you were doing at the time? And did you mess up the rehab cost, or did you mess up all of that formula, or how
Yeah.
were you losing money on that deal?
Oh, the flip that I bought.
Yeah, the first one.
So what happened was once I went under contract, I got a friend of mine who was kind of like my boots on the ground, helping me, come up with rehab costs, come up with after repair value. He had gotten a quote from a contractor he just started using, and I think the original quote to rehab the house was like 30,000. So I'm pretty sure I bought it. I was under contract for 122. I was expecting to rehab it for 30 and sell it for I think 300, 325. That's what the ARV was. So for me, it's a home run deal. Um, After I went under contract and I got a second bid, that contractor said it was going to be $120,000 rehab. So from 30 to $120,000 rehab, huge difference. There's no longer any profit to be made at that point. So when I say I was losing money from day one, I already bought it. I bought it too high. Like I shouldn't have closed on it at that price, because I wasn't going to be able to sell it for a profit. And then I had a hard money loan on it that was super expensive, so it was just costing me.
Yeah, there's a saying out there, you make your money when you buy, you get paid
Yeah.
when you sell. I feel
Hmm.
like that was like a big thing that I thought about when I first got into real estate, right? The first deals that I started doing is like everyone wants to start overpaying for these deals so they can
Hmm.
start getting their first couple deals, right? When it's like the hardest part is to get that good deal, right? To get somebody to
Hmm.
sell their property for a good deal. Because if you do that, you do your rehab, that's where you're obviously going to make the money.
Hmm.
So I'm assuming that you had like quite a few deals along the way that you probably lost money on, right?
Not too many, just because like we wholesale for the most part. So wholesaling, I mean, it's a lot less risky. You have clauses to protect yourself from losing money. So, I'm selling a house right now that I'm going to be losing a fair amount of money on, but
That's a flip or wholesale.
we actually bought it to fix it up and rent it out. We had a bad contractor do the rehab, and basically we'd have to start from scratch. So it just, I think, makes more sense to just sell it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Sounds like we need to expose the contractor world here.
Yeah. How
So,
much time do you have?
right. Yeah, we'll be here for a couple hours.
Yeah.
So, COVID, I guess,
Hmm.
money's flowing all over the place. Everyone and their brother's a real estate investor. And then everyone's also becoming a contractor. And there's so much work out there for everyone, where it seems like, you probably have a lot of work for these contractors where it's so hard. Like the deals gone bad group, where you see
Hmm.
this constant deals going bad of these contractors just stealing money
Yeah,
and
it's crazy.
this and that. What would you say is the craziest stuff that you're seeing with these contractors that at least you're dealing with?
Well, it's tough to answer because we don't deal with a lot of contractors. Just because, like I said, we typically like wholesale most of ours. I mean, I've heard and seen a whole lot of people say that contractors will ask for like a huge deposit, and then as soon as they get the deposit, just disappear. I know for me, being out of state, a lot of things that I've heard and experienced myself with that, house that we're losing money on, is not getting like the proper like guidance on, what kind of materials should we be using, and really just being able to hold people accountable. I think that a lot of out of state investors, they're known for, having deeper pockets. And so I think a lot of local contractors, in my experience, like take advantage of that. They know you're not there to, oversee the project, check in on it, make sure that things are being done right. So,
And the
um,
thing about real estate investors is you obviously got to be kind of a cheapskate. We dealt
yeah.
with that on the
Mm-hmm.
junk removal side.
I'm
It
sure.
was brutal.
Yeah.
So, I've done it. I've done a couple flips, wholesale stuff like that. But the contractors that I've hired for, my flips, when I would look at like I'd walk into the property and like somebody who doesn't know anything about real estate investing, this would drive me nuts, right? I'm a young kid. My family would come look at this flip that I have, and they'd be like looking at this thing like, "You're telling me you just rehab this property?" And they're like my mom will have the blue tape and she's like got a million pieces of tape all over the walls. And I'm like,
Mhm.
she just doesn't understand, right? Or, hey, you should have tore out this wall and you should have put a bathroom here. And it's,
Yeah.
it's like maybe you don't get that value on the back end.
Mhm.
But all the contractors that we would hire was like, we were hiring I don't want to say the bottom of the barrel, but maybe just above that to where
Mhm.
like I would walk through the property myself even and be like, you'd see paint lines all over the ceiling. And it's just like, we got to redo this.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy.
something I dealt with as well is the easiest part is doing the first 90% probably of the rehab. And then
Mhm.
like the tedious stuff at the end is always, it's always the worst part
Yeah.
where that's when the contractors start disappearing and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, but with the wholesaling, right? So, what would you say an average deal size with your wholesaling is?
We probably make around $7,000-8,000 per deal.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what's the biggest deal you've ever done?
So at the end of my first year, I don't even really remember how I got into it, but we started wholesaling like bigger package deals, like single family portfolios. So we had one deal. It was a nightmare. It was a ton of work, but obviously a lot of work, big reward. Um, there was three. I had two other JV partners, so the deal was split three ways, but we grossed 950 on that one
Wow.
deal. Yeah, it was six. It was a package of 65 homes. I think in Kansas City.
Private equity company buying those?
No, it was kind of. It was a group of investors. So there's this there was this investor who kind of pooled money from, I think some of them were like, NFL athletes, things like that. Just people who want to get into real estate passively. What they do is they like pull together like a group of funds. They would buy it and rehab it with those funds, and then get their returns off of renting them out.
So you made 950 on this deal, right?
Yeah.
Obviously there was partners involved and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
Do you think hopefully your buyers aren't listening to this too?
Yeah.
I
Well,
assume they
they
don't
ended
know
up
that you
finding
made
out,
nine.
and they
Oh,
got a
okay.
little upset about it. But I mean, they're still making money
Can
on the
that
deal. So
I was gonna say, can that deal cash flow, right? When the wholesalers have a $950,000,
yeah, I mean, we got it really cheap. Yeah, I mean, it was just, you don't really find a whole lot of distressed portfolios because usually someone who has a portfolio of 60 plus houses, they, take care of it to a certain extent. But this situation, I think that the owners were going through like foreclosure. So they weren't getting any money off the deal. They just had to pay off the bank loan.
Okay.
So
How does somebody get a package of deals like that where it's just a ton of single family distressed properties? Is it I guess what do they call it? Piggybacked from another
oh, daisy
person or
chain.
yeah,
Yeah.
daisy chain.
Yeah, no, we got so once I really started picking up like our volume in St. Louis, I think we kind of created like a name for just like as a company who can get deals to the closing table. So it was just through connections. I think that one I got from a realtor who they worked directly with the bank. The realtor didn't have a buyer for it, so I'd have done a couple deals with him already, and he asked me like, "Hey, I have a package of 65 homes in Kansas City. Can you do anything with it?" I didn't know if I could, but I told him yeah. So
Yeah, you always got to say yeah, you
yep,
figure it out
fake it till you
later.
make it.
Yeah, there you go. So I have some mentors and stuff in real estate that are,
Mhm.
wholesalers, flippers, that sort of thing. And I know that they did a deal like last year. It was, probably, I don't know if it was 60 homes. Maybe it was. Maybe you sold it to them. I don't know. But I know that the wholesaler, or I guess they bought the deal. The wholesaler brought it to the other guy and they ended up partnering up on it to where I think they turned them into rentals or something like that,
Mhm.
value add, right? And then they were going to maybe sell them off again. But
Mhm.
I know that they went into the deal immediately, right? With $1 million in equity in the property. So the wholesaler, who I assume was not a millionaire at the time, just like, who's a guy my age,
Mhm.
just
That's
millionaire
crazy.
overnight.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
it's crazy.
need
Like
more of those deals.
yeah, seriously. Yeah, you maybe need to connect me with him so I can get involved in that
For
next
sure. I
one.
definitely can. I was already thinking it'd be a good connection for you.
Yeah.
So, I guess for me, I obviously like, and you're going to probably relate to this with the wholesaling is for me, I'm in the service-based industry, that sort of thing. And I don't really have recurring or passive income coming in, a
Mhm.
couple things, but nothing life-changing.
Yeah.
to where it's just like constant a battle every single day of I got to go put the work in. I got to go put the work in, right? And it's just a grind. Say I did a 300,000 this month. I got to
Mm-hmm.
go do that 300 next month, right?
Yep.
And I got to find new business and stuff like that to where I want to get into rentals and start parking money and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm debating on single family and getting, a couple properties there and then maybe leveraging that to go get multifamily. Do you like what do you suggest for me? Should I go into multifamily? And Grant Cardone always says like get nothing lower than 16 units, I think is
Mm-hmm.
what he says. I also have a buddy, he's a broker, and he always tells me like you need to go after these big deals so you can actually hire a property management team that's like, it's already going to operate it right then and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do think that if you're really looking to build your portfolio quickly, and especially if you have like the active income to, where you can get, big jumbo loans from the bank and things like that. Like I think it's definitely easier to build it quicker that way because, you're instead of, like you said, a 16 unit, instead of evaluating 16 separate homes, you're evaluating one building. You're limited on like your inventory, obviously, because there's going to be a lot more single family homes and apartment buildings. But yeah, I mean, again, like if you have the ability and the desire to like build quickly, I mean, we've kind of like our eight, we have one duplex, the rest are like single family. And I mean, we've just kind of gotten them through just the wholesaling business in general. But I think it takes a lot of time and energy to build up a big portfolio. So yeah, I mean, bigger multifamily, that's something that we're probably going to be more focused on later in the year. Just because it's a long-term play. I think it's easier to find and evaluate single family homes. There's obviously, again, more inventory for it, but it just takes more time. I'm very
Okay.
impatient. I feel like you're pretty impatient too, so
Oh
I
yeah,
think
it's terrible.
multifamily might be a little
Yeah.
bit more fitting. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I am. And I think so big. It's like I don't want to go
Yeah,
get
it's
that one
tough,
property
man.
and then wait another 30
Because you could
days.
always get like a portfolio, you know what I mean? You could reach out to property managers, like realtors, like I said, hey, who's looking to sell their portfolio? You can always get deals like that. Like those are out there too. I just, I feel like it probably would be easier to get more, to just kind of focus on multifamily
I
because,
think I need more skin in the game with the single family and do
hmm
more deals before I like go tackle some 16 unit or 30 unit. And I don't know what I'm doing. And if it
yeah.
doesn't cash flow, I'm screwed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, multifamily is trickier. I have a hard time getting into multifamily because I think it's harder to like. They're not as easy to evaluate. You're going off cap rates. Cap rates kind of subjective, objective. One of those words.
Hmm.
Basically, everybody's opinion is different. So single family is easy. You have a house on the same street, same size. You know what it's worth, fixed up. Multifamily definitely is a little bit more complicated, which I think a little bit risky too. But if you really know your numbers and know the market, or have someone that does, then it can help you scale it pretty quick.
So everybody says we're going into a recession if we're not already in one. I'm sure you've already seen a shift a little bit in the real estate market.
Mm-hmm.
What is the shift that you've seen, right? Are people, are more people selling, right? Are they getting foreclosed on? Are you getting more deals, or is it still extremely hard to find these deals?
I feel like it's always hard to find deals. So we just try to really like focus on, very specific, like we work with very specific buyers and who have very specific criteria and just really focus on that. As far as the market recession, things like that, you know, earlier this year, I think people were still a lot, pretty scared about what things were gonna go as far as like interest rates. I think it's kind of like leveled out at this point. So
Do you think they're going down or going up?
I have no idea. It's weird because like I should be, more in tune with things like that, where the market's going. Like our business, like our company is very volume focused. So I'm just like my head is always buried in getting deals. Like I'm always
Yeah.
focused on growing the company, making sure that like I don't even have a whole lot of time to like, what have interest rates been doing? Like what has the housing market been doing? I just adjust to like what is in front of me, like right there, honestly.
So how are you finding these wholesale deals, right? Is it direct mail? Is it word of mouth?
Yeah, good question. So I'm like I need to be in control. So direct mail, other inbound marketing, like website, like I don't do any of that because like I like to hunt. You know what I mean? Like I gotta be going out like seeing who's gonna sell their house to me every single day. So we do I think our primary lead source is texting. Um
Like on batch leads or
yeah, we use launch control. I used to use batch. I like launch control has like been I mean it's 10 times better in my opinion. Yeah, I mean it's super easy. Like I had a deal 2 months ago that I closed and I never talked to the seller on the phone once. Literally only texted them through the entire transaction. You know, super convenient for them, super convenient for me. You know, like we have like the software like, you know, has all the notes from our conversation. It's on my computer. I'm just typing them, asking them questions about the house. Like yeah, texting has definitely been one of our more convenient and
is
consistent.
cold calling still hot or
Yeah, no, we get a lot of leads from cold calling too. Yeah, that's been a majority of our leads lately because we have virtual cold callers who bring in cold leads to warm leads, and then my mom is my acquisitions person, so she calls them, and she's a much better closer than I
there you
am.
go.
So yeah,
That's why you got fired.
apparently, yeah.
She might fire you now.
I hope not. I, we'll
But
see.
yeah, man, I had a good point and then I got sidetracked there. But
Fair enough. I do it all the time.
yeah, but so you know, I've done a handful of wholesales and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And, you know, when I first got in the game, I guess of real estate, right? Very, very small level, just being that kid who's like trying to make the, you know, the next step, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody told me about direct mail and they were like, oh, I'll tell you about this person. I'll even give you a list, right? Well, this list was probably already ran through by,
Mm-hmm.
100 people. Gave me a list and I ended up running direct mail, knowing nothing about real estate whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And the mail itself was there was a picture of the person's home like on the card, right? So they open it
Yeah.
up and it's an actual picture of
Yeah.
their
Like
home.
who took a picture of my house?
Yeah.
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 Good
And
for
so
attention grabbing. Yeah.
so I think, they give you statistics or KPIs of, hey, you need to spend 2 grand before you're gonna get a deal. That's on average, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had like $1,600 to my name maybe, and I spent
Yeah.
1,600. I did this direct mail and we sent it out and I knew nothing about it again. I just
Mm-hmm.
was waiting for the phone to ring. I still lived with my parents at the time. All right, and my stepdad was there and I was actually going on a run and I get a call, right, of somebody trying to sell their property. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like the
Mm-hmm.
direct mail went out, right? I need to go home and see if my postcard is in the mail." So I go home, I'm checking the mail, my stepdad ended up checking it and it wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, huh, I guess I didn't get it. Maybe it didn't send out everywhere. So I was like, you know what? I'll go through the trash. He threw it away. So my own
Mm-hmm.
direct mail that was sent out, they send one to your house so you can see it,
Oh
right?
yeah, and he just tossed it.
Yeah, and he just
Oh
tossed it because
wow.
he thought it was junk mail.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, that's why I can't do it.
So, but it was all like constant calls of people.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you take a picture of my house? You can't do that.
Yeah,
It's
I mean
like
that is
it's
smart
off
though.
Google.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do with direct mail. I think one of the things that I heard is helpful, like because we buy a lot of properties like in the same area, and so something similar to that is like I've heard of people having success saying, "Hey, I bought this house right down your street, and it's a picture of their neighbor's house." That gives them that familiarity. So I know direct mail works. I just, like you said, you got to sit there and wait for the call. I can't sit back and wait. I gotta
Right.
like I said, we're hunting. We're always like on the look. Like we can't. Me personally, I know it works, but I just have a hard
Right.
time.
So something that, a lot of real estate investors will probably watch this, right? Or maybe they're listening at this point because they are interested in real
Mm-hmm.
estate. So for me, I tried to do the direct mail and, the driving for dollars and this and that, right? Now I wanted to start some big real estate investment company to where my junk removal business was taking off at the time and
Mm-hmm.
we were bidding jobs like fairly, we would get a call. This is how it would start. We get a call, hey, we need to get our property cleared out to get it ready to sell, to where I would go in there being oblivious. I'd say, hey, we can do it for 5 grand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'd be like, oh, okay, I'll give you a call back. Sounds good, and then I would bid so many of these jobs to where we'd have 40,000 and on the books at the end of the month that we didn't close. And I'm like, how can I start making some more of this money? And I talked to other people and stuff like that. And I was like, maybe I can start wholesaling these properties instead of, trying to take $5,000 out of their pocket, put money in their pocket. I paid $10,000 for a mentor, right? That was in the wholesaling game, we'll say. And I came back, and these same deals that I was losing before in the junk removal industry, which I know a lot of junk removal companies, they don't do this, right? I've got to be one of 5 maybe in the United States that do this, or I did this. To where we'd go into these properties, or I started going into these properties, and I'd say, hey, we can say it was like a clear out that was $5,000. I'd say $8,000, to where it was like, whoa, I didn't expect that. To where they didn't want to hire me, but I'd say, but I've also been looking for a property in this neighborhood for quite some time now. I think it's a coincidence. I'd love to make an offer on it. Are you interested in selling it? Well, I already knew they were interested in selling it. That's why they gave me a
called you
call.
in the first place, yeah.
To where then I would say, hey, what are you guys looking for, right? And I would make an offer on the property. I would already know the numbers or general idea before I even got there. So I gave him a junk removal price that was pretty inflated because I wasn't there for the junk removal.
Yeah.
And then I gave him an offer for the home, and they'd say, oh, that sounds great. I got family members involved on this property, though. I obviously would have to talk to them. Let's go ahead and get this clear out done, though, right? And then I'd make way more money than I thought I was going to.
That's crazy.
So we'd clear out the property, and then they'd call me back 2 weeks later and say, hey, you know what?
You want to sell the house?
Yeah, we will sell it to you, right? And they wouldn't be like, hey, we paid you $8,000. It would be the same price that I offered for.
Yeah.
So we started double dipping on a lot of these deals. And within a week of me coming back from this like mentorship, we'll say I closed 2 deals, both $5,000 a piece profit. One of those,
I think we talked to them.
I probably sent you the deal. Yeah. You're probably like, man, this is way overpriced. My margins were small on those, but we had the first one. I landed the clear out for $3,500, which wasn't inflated or anything like that. That was pretty average. And then the wholesale fee was like $5,000 on that one. And then that same guy had another property right down the street, and he was just like fed up with being a real estate investor. Where he's like, hey, I'll sell you this other property. And I made $5,000 on that one. And then I was like, I need to start taking this serious.
Yeah.
To where we wrapped the back of the trucks. We buy houses in any condition, bright pink camo box trucks. And we would start getting calls from that to where people wouldn't even be looking for junk removal, to where we'd close deals doing that. They always tend to be in not the best neighborhood.
Yeah, of course.
But there were some deals that were just from junk removal that, we wouldn't always clear them out, right? Kind of like I was saying. But some of these deals would go from, a $500 junk removal job to $70,000 profit, doing a wholesale or even flips. To where I've seen personally with my business has exploded because all these real estate investors see how much they're paying junk removal companies, right? They're paying them maybe $10,000 a month for just clear outs, right? If they're, scaling pretty big, where they're like, I could just be doing this myself. So many people come to me and they're like, hey, I want to learn how to start a junk removal business because because they're passing up on deals as well as, they're passing up on deals and, passing up on deals. But, so like, are you hiring junk removal companies or anything like that? For your flips, I guess?
We do every now and then, but we try to find as cheap junk removal as possible. But like
you're
we
one
don't
of those guys, huh?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Man, there's so many costs to flips and everything. That's why we don't do it that often. But we just bought this house in Blackjack that, it cost $3,000 just to get stuff out. Our margin on that is pretty tight because, holding properties there's so many more costs. That's why I like wholesaling.
Well, the main problem with it is, you're the real estate investor, right? And you're worried about the plumbing and, the electric and all this other stuff. That's an actual skilled trade where you could understand potentially the value of paying money for those things. And then some junk removal guy comes there and tries to stick it to you for a pile in the garage, right? To where that's why I like the junk removal industry is because there's just so much money in it for not being like such a skilled trade. But it's
crazy.
But basically, like a lot of real estate investors, a lot of junk removal companies target those people, and I say, go target them. I'm going to go target the people who pay
more,
real money. So But so you scaled from 0 to 1.5 million in the first 12 months of wholesaling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what your average deal was, your size?
I don't. KPIs and our metrics are definitely something that I struggle with and need to work on. But yeah, I'm not the most organized person. It's interesting, man. Like I'll talk to other like real estate investors who been doing it longer than me, or even at the same time, and they have their numbers like figured out, which is smart. Like that's how you run a business. Like that's what I'm trying to transition to. Because right now I've definitely been running, it's a hustle. It's not a business yet. Like, we kind of continue, like we're just doing the same thing every day. Like it's not all, broken down, but yeah, I mean, that's another thing I like about it though, because I'm not organized, but I can still have a very successful business just by putting in the work. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you can
building
still have $1 million
relationships.
business.
Yeah, and I don't have like all my metrics broken down. Like I don't know exactly like what our sales numbers are. I know I should. It's gonna make me more profitable and like, create a better business by knowing those things. But I don't have to have all that together to be successful like in real estate. So because I mean I'm just very bad at it. Like I'm
Right.
very unorganized. Like it's a problem.
And if
But
you track the data, you can start like, it starts telling you, hey, this is what we need to do in order to
mhm.
get here, to where it's like
Yeah,
more
easier for
predictable.
hiring. Yeah, exactly. I know the value in it. I know, and I mean, I just hired like operations manager to like help with that. So it's definitely valuable. And that's why it's just it's really hard for me to be organized. Like I'm always on the hunt. I'm always grinding. It's hard to kind of take a step back and work on the business, not in the business. But you learn those things as you grow, and like I get mentors who kind of point me in the right direction too. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that has definitely like set me back from even bigger years. It's just the fact that like I don't have everything that dialed in. But again, not everybody's good at that. I'm one of those people that's not.
I think a lot of people, they think that, it's so hard to scale a business to a million a year, when like I've read plenty of books and stuff like that, or even big people,
Mm-hmm.
and you ask the question of, hey, how do I get to a million a year? And then like I think the answer is just like hustle, hustle, hustle. And then once you hit that $1 million mark, it's like, then you start thinking about the KPIs and all these other things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not as complex as people make it seem
Not
at
at
the
all.
beginning.
Yeah.
It's just lots of hustle, and
Mm-hmm.
every every
Mindset for sure.
yeah, every single day counts, every single second counts. I'm sure you have your goals, and you're like, I need to do X amount of deals each month in order to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So, but KPIs are, I went a long time without tracking KPIs, and then
Mm-hmm.
I did it and realized that I wasn't doing it the right way, which the data, it was inaccurate and that sort of thing. But I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that could be your advantage, it is tracking those KPIs, because 90% of the people out there don't know how to do it. They're not going to do it. And it just becomes so much easier to scale.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I try to not be too hard headed and take that advice, but yeah, it's just tough. You're always in the grind. It's hard to kind of take that step back, but it is important. So, I'm slowly getting there. Not as fast as I want. I think that's another thing too. I'm impatient. I know that getting KPIs and all that takes time. And I think that's kind of what held me back. Because I'm like, I know if I'm gonna do something, I want to see results from it like now.
Right. Yeah,
So, but
that's why you're wholesaling.
yeah, yeah. So it's tough because wholesaling rewards you for being impatient. But at the same time, you got to learn to look long term. Again, that's why we have long term rentals. Like that's why like we hire and stuff like that. So it's just one of those things. It's hard to kind of balance.
I did a deal, my last real estate deal. It was also a junk removal lead. We did the job there for like $500, and it turned into me buying the property. And we ended up, it was like the best deal ever. Like
Mm-hmm.
it could have, honestly, I didn't think it was going to go very well, and it ended up turning out amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would assume that it's called a wholesale,
Yeah.
to where I got the deal under contract, right? And it looked like grandma's house, right,
Mm-hmm.
as they say.
Yeah.
And all we did was, I bought it at the 75% ARV formula, where everyone comes in when you're trying to wholesale it, and they all give you the same offer that, everything's within $5,000 to $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I got to flip this property. Or if I find the contractor who's like, or if I find somebody who really doesn't know what they're doing, or maybe it's their first deal or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
where they're going to do all of the work, where they're not paying, $60,000 in rehab costs, that's who I need to find.
Mm-hmm.
So we tore out the carpet, we took out the junk. Really, that was it, and we made 40,000 profit on that one.
Crazy.
But we ended up finding that buyer that we were looking for, and that person went all out and had ARV way higher than what we even expected. So I think they ended up making six figures, on the back end of that deal as well.
Wow, yeah, it's crazy.
So I just need a couple of those a month.
Yeah, I know. Seriously,
You got to send
I'll
me
take
some
those
deals.
too. Hit me up, man. You know where to find me.
Yeah. Do you get anything in this area, like St. Charles?
No, it's tough. Like, we focus a lot on like the kind of landlord type areas because that's where most of our buyers are from. So you know what I mean? Deals that we can, get under contract, 55,000, they're rented for 900 a month, stuff like that. I think it's a lot easier to find those just because they're not, honestly, we don't need as big of discount on them. And they're still good returns for, buy and hold investors. So we don't spend a whole lot of time marketing out in these higher price areas just because, we're really volume based. I think we probably could, I think the spreads are bigger on, higher value homes. I just, find them a little bit more challenging to find. And I like what we can do consistently, what we can, like, if we can get a few good leads every week, like, I'd prefer that. So we, the spreads might be a little bit thinner, but we can, make up for that in volume.
I think I actually sent you the property that I was just talking about.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about it. Yeah. So. I think it's always been hard for me to even underwrite like deals out here too, just because that's one of the things that I always have like a hard time doing too, like underwriting something for a flip. That's why we don't do too many of them.
Yeah. And it's so much easier for me to look at a property out here because I'm familiar with those type of houses.
Yeah.
Than going to a St. Louis house that was built in 1955, that's all brick, and I don't know anything about tuck pointing and this and that. So but what would you say is like the most valuable tips that you could give the audience, right? And also where do you plan on taking things from here?
Good question, man. I have a hard time answering with just one thing, so I'm gonna have to think, man.
Maybe any struggles that you've had along the way, right? And you like solve some sort of issue that, can help other people out.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I think that probably the main thing for me, especially when I got started, is not being afraid to fail or look dumb. Because I think that that's something that kind of held me back when I just got started. I remember my first few deals that I got under contract, I sent them to this big like wholesale and flipping company out here to like find a buyer. And I remember my buddy who was here locally and helping me getting deals, he would go to their meetups, and at one of the meetups, they were actually talking trash about my deal. Like, they're telling, like, everybody's talking about how terrible of a deal it was. Like, oh, this guy Shane doesn't know what he's talking about. And like, I just took that with a grain of salt. Like, I always look for feedback. So if you tell me that I don't have a good deal, like, you have to tell me why. You know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with you saying that, but I'm always trying to learn. But I wasn't afraid to like look stupid, because in that meetup, I looked stupid. And I think that being willing to fail has helped me learn a lot quicker and just kind of have the right mindset on just failing forward. That company now is always looking to like get on my buyers list. They're asking me to like send them deals. So, and that happened pretty quickly too, all because like I wasn't afraid to fail.
Right.
I just went out and did it. Everyone says like take massive action, like just don't be afraid, like just go out, do it. My hand was forced because I was fired. So I didn't really have a choice. Like, I had a pregnant wife. I had no income. I had to go out and fail. I had to go out and make mistakes, look stupid. So it was easier for me, but I mean, that's why we were able to, kind of grow so quickly my first year. I forgot what your second question was, because you had
where's your, before we wrap up here, what would you say, like, what's your goal? Where are you going from here?
Yeah, good question. I think I had a call with this new mastermind, real estate mastermind group that we're gonna start being a part of next week. And there's two tiers of this group. You have to do a certain amount of deals just to be like a part of the like first level tier. I think the tier is like 30 to 100 deals a year to be a part of like the first tier. The second tier is you have to run a business that's profiting $2 million a year. So I think that's now my focus on like where I want us to be.
What are you going to do with all that money?
Man, reinvest it,
There
buy
you
more
go.
real estate. Yeah.
Do you like, in the last podcast, we were just talking about like, you make this money and you want to buy this and that. And unfortunately, I'm that guy who
Mm-hmm.
likes cars and
Yeah, you got a couple
everything,
nice ones,
right?
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you see yourself like spoiling yourself at all? It doesn't even need to be cars, but like houses,
Yeah.
anything like that.
I mean,
Clothes.
yeah, it's tough. Like I like nice things. I don't really like for me, I'm just buying freedom. Like I want to be able to spend time with my family. Like I want to be the dad that, is always there for, my kids' sporting events, like and just like be able to take my kid out of school whenever I want to. Like for me, I definitely want to build wealth for my family and like just have that like freedom, not to have to worry about like anything. I do like getting nice things. I mean, like we get floor seats to Suns Sixers games out in Phoenix. So I like, I prefer experiences, I guess, but I don't know. It depends. I haven't got to the $2 million level yet, so I don't know if I'm gonna want a Lambo or Ferrari at that
Right,
point. I
there you
guess we'll
go.
see.